Hello, DeLorean Weekend attendees. My name is Cory Whitehead from North Bay, Ontario, Canada. That's about 4 hours north of Toronto. I've been the caretaker of N4692 since June of 2008. But as seems to be common among our group, my story is just a little bit different. No, my car wasn't a barn find. I'm not original owner, nor is any of my family. I didn't inherit it, I didn't pay cash, and I didn't finance at inflated rates either. I won my car. I grew up fascinated by these cars. I couldn't get over the stainless steel body, the way the doors opened, and simply their shape. As a young kid living in a more remote area with the resources available at the time, like my public library, I researched them and absorbed everything I could. And someday I told myself I would own one. I even ordered my personalized plates, reserving them in the system, and left them in their mailing envelope on a bookshelf, waiting for that day. No other car deserved that particular honor. Fast forward several years, and between school, work, marriage, children, the DeLorean budget grew and shrunk as priorities came and went. I'm sure many of you can commiserate. But every once in a while, just for fun, I would search up two words online: DeLorean Raffle. Of course, from time to time there'd be a hit. You knew that you were going to see the DCS Raffle Car every couple of years, but from time to time other organizations would obtain and raffle off a car. In my case, it was a Knights of Columbus chapter in Montana. So once I found out about it, I spent a fair bit of time on the phone talking with the organizer of the raffle, asking the pertinent questions like, is this open to Canadians, and do you have to be present to win? Ultimately, I bought 3 tickets. Now, this allows me to say that I overpaid for my car, but I never get any sympathy for my first world problem. That's okay. Come the day of the draw, though, it dominated my thoughts. Of course, I'm not going to win this car. I mean, who wins these things? It just couldn't be me. Well, imagine my surprise late in the afternoon when I had a call from some unknown area code, and the voicemail message told me I won the car. Things got a little bit fuzzy after that. I know I floated on air for days, and all I could think of was how to get there, and more importantly, how soon. So plans were made, flights arranged, a route was planned, and Dave and Julie Swingle at DMC Midwest were on speed dial so I could add parts to an order I'd pick up as I passed through. Or this is how the plan went. One excruciating week later, I'm picking up my car that I'd wanted for years. Now, my father came with me on this trip because he had the time, the inclination, and I suspect he thought it might be quite the adventure. If we'd only known the adventure it was going to be. Now, while some may think it's crazy to hop into a car sight unseen and drive at 2,300 miles to bring it home, that's exactly what we did. Without going into too much detail, it turned out to be a perfectly reliable car, with no problems requiring urgent care or an overnight layover to fix a problem. We did, however, learn that a DeLorean can surf. You see, after leaving Montana, we were driving overnight to get to Minneapolis, Minnesota. We had some issues with our flight out, and our luggage was separated from us. Now, being told we'd be able to pick it up on the Wednesday morning, I wanted to get there and be able to continue on. So Dad slept in the car, commenting on how it was comfortable, but not something he'd want to do regularly, and I drove all night. We get to the airport, we don't have our luggage, and we leave. Dad is now taking over the driving duties. I buckled in and proceeded to nod off. I don't know how long it's been from there, but I'm awakened by a slightly urgent sounding, "Cory, brace yourself," and I look out the windshield to see us veering off onto the grassy center median of the interstate. Grass is coming up over the hood and then being pushed down as we pass over it. I'm feeling my feet getting wet, and I'm wondering how we're ever going to survive this. Fortunately, the median was little more than grass on a smooth ditchless surface, and the inner lane going the other direction had been blocked off due to road work. Because Dad had buried his foot into the carpet, the car mostly skipped over the surface and got us back onto the oncoming lane without any real effort. We even had time to stop, get out, and assess the damage, if any. Luckily, the car was unscathed. Now, there was a cliff looking thing a few hundred feet from where we were standing, a bridge in each direction spanning what appeared to be a road down below. So if it had to happen, it happened in the right place. Meanwhile, water is pouring out of the body and there's grass hanging down everywhere. But the car was still running. No wheel looked out of place or anything wrong like that. Well, I took over from there. Once I started to drive, slowly at first, building up confidence and speed, it drove fine without any issues. The alignment wasn't even off, so we crossed back into our lane via an emergency turnaround and drove the rest of the trip, making sure to get plenty of rest as necessary. One thing I did find kind of funny about the whole thing, though, was it was morning, rush hour time, and nobody stopped to help or get assistance, honk or wave at us, almost like it's Wednesday morning, this is drive a semi-exotic car across a median day or something. I just found that funny. Anyways, after I called DMC Midwest, I told them what happened, and Dave laughed. And really, we were all right at this point. I laughed too. And we were there a couple hours later. So they gave the car a very quick inspection and a complimentary grass cleaning, blowing compressed air to get it out. And they assessed my car by saying, you know what? No leaks, good idle, and solid frame. You got a good one. Um, that made me feel very good. And in addition to our order, we bought everything they recommended and installed every last thing over the next year or so. Now, the rest of the trip was just the drive home after the bureaucratic nonsense of a border crossing. I'll spare you those details. But needless to say, that was a memorable trip and possibly the best way to get to know any vehicle, but especially a DeLorean. It's the best way to immerse yourself in DeLorean culture and ownership. And unless you spend a lot of time around them, which I know most of you do, you just don't believe the attention they draw or the goodwill that you can get just by pulling up in a DeLorean. Now, without knowing much of its individual history, I put some work into it over the last dozen years, making it what it is today. So, not a complete list, but I've replaced most every hose in the car. I use stainless braided where available, so fuel lines, brake lines, clutch line. Rebuilt the AC system, replaced every single component except for the mode switch, converting it to R134A in the process because up here R12 is just impossible to find. I rebuilt the brake system from the master cylinder out. Bolted down my own roof box, which means that I have also detuned and retuned my torsion bars, which I have done single-handedly. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's possible. I've replaced my trailing arm bolts after suffering a failure on the right side just as I pulled off a highway. So apparently I have a fair amount of luck because I dodged bullets over 12 years. It came with some generic CD player. I replaced that. I replaced the speakers with modern components, or at least they were modern when I did it back in 2009. All my exterior lights except for my headlights are LED, and that's going to change soon. I want LED headlights. What else have I done off the top of my head? I recovered my headliners. When I got my car, it had a vinyl roof, and it was okay, but I wanted the fabric, and I noticed immediately once I did it, the car felt a little bit more comfortable inside, and it was quieter, so it was a good move. I reskinned my seats. They were torn and tattered. They weren't even really worth saving. At least I didn't think so at the time. So that was done. I straightened out my front fascia. I greatly reduced what we affectionately refer to as eyebrows. And currently I'm acquiring parts to replace my steering rack, box my control arms, and add the lower control arm stabilizers. I think it's time, because that's the one part of the car mechanically I just really haven't paid a lot of attention to. Now, clearly I have focused more on function and reliability over cosmetics, so my rear fascia is just as peeled as it was the day I picked it up, but I think I'm at the point where it's time to start sweating those little details. It would be nice to redo my dashboard. It would be nice to just make everything look the way it runs, which I wouldn't hesitate to hop in it right now and drive any distance. I believe it's ready to go. But there's one thing I've never changed. I find it quite endearing, and it's my hood release. It works just like yours. I've even installed a backup bicycle cable just in case something goes wrong, because it's a good idea. But my main cable isn't much of a cable at all. It's a single, solid metal line. My latch isn't spring-loaded either, and I like that because I can leave the hood unlocked at any time. So if I'm going under hood repeatedly, it's just easy to walk up to it, lift up the hood, get what I need, close it back up, walk away. It doesn't look like it's unlocked, and of course it's on me to remember to actually close it so that no one can just open it up when I walk away. But for me it works. I like it. I'm very happy. On the weekend, last weekend, I broke 75,000 miles. When I first got the car, it had about 32,000 at that time, so over 12 years. Went on a drive with 11 other cars. We maintained our distance, exercised appropriate caution, and we were a hit everywhere we went. But of course we were. After all, we're the ones living the dream. We're driving our DeLoreans. 12 years later, and I still look back when I park it. So the experience has not gotten old. It's just gotten better. I suppose that's probably enough time talking your ears off, so I want to thank the DeLorean Weekend team for putting all of this together. I mean, I'm not sure if it's easier or harder to organize something completely online like this. I certainly won't be attempting it anytime soon, but you have done a fantastic job, and I thank you for that. I also want to thank all of you for attending. It's been great to watch your videos. I'm going to continue to watch your videos for the rest of the weekend, and thank you just personally for sitting here through mine. Have a great rest of your weekend, and of course, may we always keep the stainless side up.